Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked out of the construction site. It had been another long day of hard work, and his body ached from carrying heavy materials all day. The sky was getting dark, and thick clouds were moving, in fast. He could smell rain in the air. He looked at his watch. It was almost 6 in the evening. His 8-year-old son Danny was at his friend's house doing homework. Jake had promised to pick him up by 7, which gave him just enough time to grab some groceries on the way. As Jake walked through Riverside Park, the first drops of rain began to fall. He quickened his pace, but something caught his eye near the old wooden bench by the pond. A young woman was sitting there with 2 small children. She looked very young, maybe still a teenager. The children appeared to be babies, and they were both crying. The rain started falling harder. Jake watched as the young woman tried to cover the babies with a thin blanket, but it was not enough. She looked around desperately, as if searching for somewhere to go, but the park was empty. Everyone else had already left because of the storm. Jake stopped walking. His first thought was to mind his own business. He had his own problems to worry about. Money was tight, and raising Danny alone was not easy. But something about the scene made his heart hurt. The young woman looked so scared and helpless. The rain was now pouring down hard. The woman was getting soaked, and the babies were crying, louder. Jake could not just walk away. He pulled his jacket over his head and ran toward the bench. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out as he got closer. The young woman looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. She had long brown hair that was now wet and sticking to her face. Her clothes were damp and she was shivering. The 2 babies in her arms looked exactly the same. They had to be twins. "We're fine," she said quickly, but her voice was shaking. "We're just waiting for the rain to stop." Jake could tell she was lying. He looked around and saw an old car parked nearby. The hood was up and steam was coming from the engine. "Is that your car?" The woman nodded. "It broke down this morning. I've been trying to fix it, but I don't know much about cars." "You've been sitting here all day?" Jake asked, shocked. The woman looked down at the crying babies. "We didn't have anywhere else to go." Jake's heart broke. These were just babies, and they were getting sick from the cold rain. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Katie," she said softly. "Katie Wilson. And these are my daughters, Lily and Rose." "I'm Jake Martinez," he said. "Listen, Katie, you and your girls can't stay. Out here in this storm, you'll all get sick. Why don't you come with me? I live just a few blocks away. You can dry off and get warm." Katie shook her head quickly. "No, I can't. I don't even know you. I can't take my babies to a stranger's house." Jake understood her. Fear. She was smart to be careful. "I get it. You're right to be cautious. But look at your babies. They're cold and wet. I'm a single dad myself. I have an 8-year-old son named Danny. I'm not going to hurt you or your children. I just want to help." Katie looked down at Lily and Rose. They were both shivering now, and their crying had turned into weak whimpers. She knew Jake was right. They could not stay outside in the storm. "I don't have any money to pay you," she said quietly. "I'm not asking for money," Jake replied. "I'm just offering a warm, dry place for the night. You can leave first thing in the morning if you want." Katie studied Jake's face. He had kind eyes and a gentle voice. Something told her that he was telling the truth. She was running out of options anyway. "Okay," she said finally. "But just for tonight." Jake smiled. "Just for tonight. Come on, let's get you all out of this rain." He helped Katie gather her things. She had a worn diaper bag and a small suitcase that looked like it had seen better days. Jake took the suitcase and held his jacket over Katie and the babies as they walked quickly through the rain. Jake's apartment was small but clean. It had 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and a living room with an old couch and a television. Jake showed Katie to his bedroom. "You and the girls can sleep here," he said. "I'll take the couch." "I can't take your bed," Katie protested. "Yes, you can. The babies need a comfortable place to sleep. Don't worry about it." Katie looked around the room. It was simple but comfortable. There were pictures of Jake and Danny on the dresser. In one photo, they were at a baseball game, both smiling and eating hot dogs. "Where's Danny's mother?" Katie asked without thinking, then immediately felt embarrassed. "I'm sorry, that's none of my business." Jake's face grew sad for a moment. "She left when Danny was 2. Said she wasn't ready to be a mother. I haven't seen her since." "I'm sorry," Katie said softly. "It's okay. Danny and I do fine on our own, most of the time anyway." Jake smiled. "Are you hungry? I was going to make some soup for dinner." Katie nodded. She had not eaten much in the past few days. Her money was almost gone, and she had been saving what little food she had for the babies. While Jake made dinner, Katie gave the twins a bath in the small bathroom. The warm water felt good, and the babies finally stopped crying. She found some clean clothes in her suitcase and dressed them in fresh diapers. When she came back to the living room, Jake had set the table for 2. There was hot soup, bread, and milk for the babies. Katie felt tears in her eyes. It had been so long since anyone had been kind to her. "Thank you," she whispered. As they ate, Jake asked gentle questions about Katie's situation. Slowly, she began to tell him her story. "My husband died 6 months ago in a car accident," she said quietly. "His family blamed me for what happened. They said I was too young and that I caused too much stress in his life. They said it was my fault he was driving angry that night." Jake listened without judging. His mother never liked me. She thought her son married beneath him. After the funeral, she told me I had to leave their house. She said I wasn't really family anymore and that I was a bad influence on the twins. "That's terrible," Jake said. "What about your own family?" Katie shook her head. "My parents died when I was 16. I lived with my aunt until I got married, but she moved to another state last year. I don't have anyone else." Jake felt angry at the people who had thrown out this young mother and her babies. How could anyone be so cruel? "Well, you're safe here tonight," he said. "Tomorrow we can figure out what to do next." Katie nodded, feeling grateful but also worried. She knew she could not stay with this kind stranger forever. But for tonight, her babies were warm and safe, and that was enough. 3 weeks had passed since that rainy night when Jake found Katie and her twin babies in the park. What was supposed to be just one night had turned into something more. Katie had tried to leave several times, but each time something went wrong. Her car still would not start, and she had no money to fix it. Jake kept telling her it was okay to stay a little longer. Katie woke up early every morning to make breakfast for everyone. She felt bad about staying in Jake's home without paying rent, so she tried to help as much as she could. She cleaned the apartment, did the laundry, and cooked dinner every night. Jake told her she did not need to do all this work, but Katie wanted to feel useful. The twins, Lily and Rose, were doing much better now. They had gained weight and were sleeping through the night. They loved playing with Danny's old toys, and they would giggle when he made funny faces at them. Katie was amazed at how good Danny was with her babies. He was patient and gentle, just like his father. Danny had been nervous about having Katie and the twins in his home at first. He was used to having his dad all to himself. But Katie made him feel special. She helped him with his homework every afternoon when he came home from school. She was good at math, something that Jake struggled with after working long hours at construction sites. "Katie, can you help me with this problem?" Danny would ask, and Katie would sit down with him at the kitchen table. She explained things in a way that made sense to him. His grades started getting better, and his teacher sent home a note saying how much Danny had improved. Jake noticed the change in his son. Danny was happier and more confident. He also saw how hard Katie worked to take care of everyone. She never complained, even when the twins kept her up at night. She never asked for anything for herself. Jake had never met anyone so grateful and kind. One evening, Jake came home to find Katie crying quietly in the kitchen while she made dinner. The twins were napping, and Danny was in his room playing video games. "What's wrong?" Jake asked, sitting down beside her. Katie wiped her eyes. "I got a phone call today from my late husband's mother, Patricia Wilson. She found out where I'm staying." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What did she say?" "She was very angry. She said I had no right to take her grandchildren away from family." She said you could be dangerous and that I'm being foolish trusting a stranger with my babies. Katie's voice shook. She said she's going to call the police and social services. Jake felt angry, but he tried to stay calm. Katie, you're not doing anything wrong. You're taking care of your children the best way you can. But what if she's right? What if I'm being stupid? I barely know you and I'm living in your house with my babies. What kind of mother does that make me? Jake turned Katie's chair so she was facing him. You're a good mother, Katie. You're doing everything you can to keep your children safe and healthy. Look at them, they're happy and growing. That's what matters. But Patricia has money and lawyers. She could take my babies away from me. She won't, Jake said firmly. I won't let that happen. The next morning, there was a knock at the door. Jake opened it to find a woman in a business suit standing there with a clipboard. Good morning. I'm Linda Carter from Social Services. I received a complaint about the living conditions of 2 young children at this address. Jake's heart started racing, but he tried to stay calm. Of course, come in. Linda Carter looked around the apartment carefully. She checked the kitchen for food, looked at where the twins slept, and asked Katie many questions about their daily routine. She also talked to Danny about how he felt having Katie and the babies in his home. I like having them here, Danny said. Honestly. Katie helps me with my homework and the babies are funny. They like to watch cartoons with me. After 2 hours, Linda Carter closed her notebook. Everything looks fine here. The children appear healthy and well cared for. I don't see any problems with the current living situation. Katie felt relief wash over her, but Linda Carter was not finished. However, I do need to inform you that Mrs. Patricia Wilson has filed a formal complaint. She's asking for emergency custody of the twins. There will be a court hearing next week. Katie's face went white. What does that mean? It means a judge will decide what's best for the children. Mrs. Wilson claims that you're an unfit mother because of your age and current living situation. She says she can provide a more stable home. After Linda Carter left, Katie sat on the couch holding both twins. She was shaking with fear. She's going to take my babies away from me, she whispered. Jake sat down next to her. No, she's not. We'll fight this. You're their mother. No one can change that. But she has money for good lawyers. I have nothing. You have something more important than money, Jake said. You have love. And you're not alone in this fight. That evening, Jake called his friend Mike, who worked as a paralegal at a law office downtown. Mike agreed to help them find a good lawyer who would work for a reasonable price. Over the next few days, Jake and Katie prepared for the court hearing. They gathered documents showing that Katie was a good mother. They got letters from Danny's teacher, who had seen how well Katie took care of all the children. They also got a letter from their neighbor, Mrs. Garcia, who had watched Katie playing with the twins in the yard and could see how much they loved their mother. Jake found himself spending more time thinking about Katie. He admired how strong she was even when she was scared. He loved watching her with the children, both the twins and Danny. She had a natural way of making everyone feel loved and important. But Jake kept these feelings to himself. Katie had enough to worry about without him making things complicated. She was young and had been through so much pain already. The last thing she needed was pressure from him. Katie was also developing feelings for Jake, though she tried to ignore them. She had never met a man who was so kind and patient. Her late husband had been controlling and often angry. Jake was different. He treated her like an equal and respected her opinions. He made her feel safe in a way she had never felt before. But Katie was afraid to trust these feelings. She was only 19, and she had already made so many mistakes. She did not want to do anything that might hurt her chances of keeping her children. The night before the court hearing, Jake could not sleep. He sat on the couch thinking about everything that had happened over the past few weeks. His life had completely changed since he found Katie and the twins in the park. He had thought he was helping them, but they had helped him too. His apartment felt like a real home now. Danny was happier and doing better in school. Jake looked forward to coming home from work each day. Tomorrow, a judge would decide whether this family that had formed so naturally would be allowed to stay together. Jake prayed that love would be enough to win against money and power. The courthouse was cold and scary. Katie sat in the hallway holding Lily while Jake held Rose. Danny stayed close to his father, looking worried. Their lawyer, Mr. Rodriguez, was a kind man who had agreed to help them for less money than usual. He said he believed Katie was a good mother and deserved to keep her children. Patricia Wilson arrived with 2 expensive lawyers and her husband, George. She was a tall woman with gray hair pulled back tightly. She wore a black suit and looked very serious. When she saw Katie, her face showed disgust. "Look at her," Patricia whispered loudly to her husband. "She's just a child herself. How can she possibly raise my grandchildren properly?" Katie felt her cheeks burn with shame, but Jake put his hand on her shoulder. "Don't listen to her," he said quietly. "You're a wonderful mother." Inside the courtroom, the judge was an older woman named Judge Martinez. She looked stern but fair. Patricia's lawyer spoke first. He was a tall man in an expensive suit who talked in big words that were hard to understand. "Your Honor, my clients are concerned about the welfare of their grandchildren. The mother, Katie Wilson, is only 19 years old and currently homeless. She is living with a man she barely knows, putting these innocent children at risk." Katie's heart sank. When the lawyer said it like that, it sounded terrible. "Furthermore," the lawyer continued, "Mr. Jake Martinez has a criminal record. He was arrested for drunk driving 15 years ago. Is this the kind of person we want around small children?" Katie turned to look at Jake in shock. He had never told her about any criminal record. Jake's face was red with embarrassment, but he nodded slightly to show it was true. Patricia's lawyer kept talking. "The Wilson family can provide these children with everything they need. They have a large home, excellent schools, and the financial means to give the twins every opportunity in life. Mrs. Wilson is a respected member of the community and has raised 4 successful children of her own." When it was Mr. Rodriguez's turn to speak, he stood up slowly. He was not as fancy as the other lawyers, but his voice was strong and clear. "Your Honor, this case is not about money or big houses, it's about love. Katie Wilson may be young, but she is a devoted mother who has never once put her children in danger. She left an abusive situation to protect her babies. And when she had nowhere else to go, she was lucky enough to find someone willing to help." Katie was surprised. Mr. Rodriguez had not mentioned the abuse before. She had told him about some of the problems with her late husband, but she had not realized he would bring it up in court. As for Mr. Martinez's past, Mr. Rodriguez continued, "That drunk driving arrest happened 15 years ago when he was a young man going through a difficult time. Since then, he has been a model citizen and an excellent father. His son, Danny, has never been in trouble, gets good grades, and is a happy, well-adjusted child." The judge asked Katie to come forward and speak. Katie's hands were shaking as she stood up. She had never talked in front of so many people before. "Your Honor," Katie began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I know I'm young, and I know I don't have much money, but I love my daughters more than anything in the world. When my husband died, his family made it clear that they blamed me for his death. They said I was too much trouble, and that I should give up my babies and disappear." Katie's voice grew stronger. "But these are my children. I carried them for 9 months. I was there when they took their first breaths. I'm the one who gets up with them at night when they're sick. I'm the one who knows that Lily likes to have her back rubbed before bed and that Rose always wants to hold her stuffed elephant." Patricia Wilson looked angry, but Katie kept talking. "Jake didn't have to help us. He could have walked past us in the park that night and minded his own business. But he didn't. He opened his home to us when we had nowhere to go. He's never asked for anything in return. He just wanted to help a mother and her babies who were in trouble." When Katie finished, there were tears in her eyes, but she felt proud that she had spoken up for herself and her children. The judge then called Danny to come forward. He was nervous, but he walked up to the front of the courtroom like a brave little soldier. "Danny, can you tell me how you feel about Katie and the babies living in your home?" the judge asked kindly. Danny looked up at the judge with serious eyes. "I like it a lot. Katie helps me with my homework and she makes really good pancakes. The babies are fun to play with and they laugh when I make silly faces. Do you feel safe with Katie in your home?" "Yes, ma'am. Katie takes really good care of the babies. She feeds them and changes their diapers and reads them stories. She takes care of me too, just like a mom would. The judge smiled slightly. And how does your father seem since Katie and the babies came to live with you? Danny thought for a moment. He's happier. He smiles more, and he doesn't seem so tired all the time. I think he likes having them there too. After Danny sat down, Patricia Wilson was called to speak. She stood up straight and tall, looking very confident. Your Honor, I have nothing against this young woman personally, but she is not equipped to raise my grandchildren. She has no education, no job, and no family support. How can she provide for their future? We can give these children everything, Patricia continued. Private schools, music lessons, college funds. We have a nanny ready to help with their care, and they would have their own rooms in our home. What about love? Mr. Rodriguez asked, when it was his turn to question Patricia. Patricia looked offended. Of course we love them. They are our son's children. But you threw their mother out onto the street when she needed help the most. Is that love? Patricia's face turned red. That girl was nothing but trouble from the day my son married her. She was too young, too immature. She caused stress in his life that contributed to his death. So you blame a 19-year-old girl for a grown man's decision to drink and drive. I never said that, Patricia snapped, but everyone in the courtroom could tell she was angry. The hearing went on for 3 hours. Both sides presented their arguments and witnesses spoke on behalf of each family. Mrs. Garcia, Jake and Katie's neighbor, testified that she had seen Katie playing with the children in the yard and that they always looked happy and healthy. When everything was finished, the judge said she needed time to think about her decision. She would announce her ruling in 1 week. Outside the courthouse, Katie felt exhausted and scared. Patricia Wilson walked past them without saying anything, but her cold stare said everything. What happens if we lose? Katie asked Mr. Rodriguez. Let's not think about that right now, he said gently. You did very well in there. The judge could see how much you love your children. That night, Jake could not eat dinner. He kept thinking about what Patricia's lawyer had said about his old drunk driving arrest. He had been so ashamed of that time in his life that he had never told Katie about it. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about my past, he said to Katie after. They put the children to bed. Katie sat down next to him on the couch. Tell me what happened. Jake took a deep breath. It was right after Danny's mother left us. I was angry and hurt, and I made some bad choices. One night I went to a bar and drank too much, then tried to drive home. I got pulled over before I hurt anyone, thank God. I spent the night in jail and learned my lesson. Have you been drinking since then? Katie asked. No, not once. That night scared me straight. I realized I had a little boy depending on me, and I couldn't let him down. Katie took Jake's hand. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is that you learned from it and became a better person. Jake looked into Katie's eyes and felt something he had not felt in years. He was falling in love with this brave young woman, who had brought so much joy into his and Danny's lives. Katie felt her heart beating faster as she looked at Jake. He was so different from her late husband. Jake was gentle and kind, and he made her feel like she mattered, but both of them were too scared to say anything about their feelings. There was too much at stake, and they could not afford to complicate things before the judge made her decision. Week of waiting felt like the longest week of their lives. The week of waiting was almost over. Tomorrow, Judge Martinez would announce her decision about the custody of Lily and Rose. Katie had barely slept for days. She kept imagining what would happen if she lost her babies. Jake tried to comfort her, but he was worried too. That morning, Mr. Rodriguez called with news. Katie, I need you to come to my office right away. I found something important in your husband's medical records. Katie felt her stomach drop. What kind of something? Just come as soon as you can. Bring Jake with you. An hour later, Katie and Jake sat in Mr. Rodriguez's small office. The lawyer looked excited but also concerned. Katie, I've been going through all the papers from your marriage to Marcus Wilson. I found hospital records from when you were pregnant with the twins. He pulled out a thick folder. These records show that you visited the emergency room several times during your pregnancy. Katie felt her face turn red. I fell down the stairs a few times. I was clumsy when I was pregnant. Mr. Rodriguez looked at her kindly. Katie, these medical reports tell a different story. The doctors wrote down their concerns about your injuries. They suspected domestic violence. Katie started crying. She had kept this secret for so long. I couldn't tell anyone. Marcus said, if I ever told anyone about our fights, he would make sure I never saw my babies again. His family has money and power. I was scared they would believe him instead of me. Jake felt anger building up inside him. He hit you while you were pregnant? Katie nodded, wiping her tears. He had a bad temper, especially when he was drinking. His mother always made excuses for him. She said I made him angry and that I needed to try harder to be a good wife. Mr. Rodriguez leaned forward. Katie, this changes everything. These medical records prove that you were in an abusive marriage. It also explains why Marcus was drinking and driving the night he died. He wasn't upset because of stress from you. He was an alcoholic who had anger problems. But how does this help us? Jake asked. It shows that Katie left an abusive situation to protect her children. She didn't run away from family support. She escaped from danger. Mr. Rodriguez smiled. This will help our case a lot. The next morning, they all went back to the courthouse. Katie felt a little more hopeful, but she was still scared. Patricia Wilson looked confident as she sat with her lawyers. She nodded at the judge when court began, as if she was sure she would win. Judge Martinez looked serious as she began to speak. I have reviewed all the evidence in this case carefully. This decision affects the lives of 2 young children, and I do not take that responsibility lightly. Katie held Jake's hand tightly. Her heart was beating so fast she thought everyone could hear it. The medical records presented show that Mrs. Katie Wilson was in an abusive marriage. The hospital visits during her pregnancy were caused by domestic violence, not clumsiness. This explains why she might have felt unsafe in her late husband's family home. Patricia Wilson's face turned white. She whispered something angry to her lawyer. Judge Martinez continued. However, I am also concerned about the living situation. Mrs. Wilson is very young and has no job or education. Mr. Martinez, while he appears to be a good father, has a criminal record and is not related to these children. Katie felt her hope slipping away. Therefore, I am ordering a temporary separation while a more thorough investigation takes place. The children will be placed in foster care for 60 days, while both families prove they can provide a suitable home. Katie gasped. No, please don't take my babies. The judge looked sad but firm. This is temporary, Mrs. Wilson. During these 60 days, you will have supervised visits with your children 3 times a week. The Wilson family will also have supervised visits. After 60 days, I will make a final decision. Katie started crying so hard she could barely breathe. Jake put his arm around her, but his own heart was breaking. Danny, who had been sitting, quietly began to cry too. 2 social workers came forward to take Lily and Rose. The babies started crying when strangers picked them up. They reached for their mother, but Katie was not allowed to hold them. Mama! Mama! Rose cried, using one of her first words. Katie tried to go to her daughter, but the social worker stopped her. I'm sorry, but you can't hold them right now. You'll see them again on Wednesday for your first supervised visit. Jake watched helplessly as the woman he had grown to love fell apart. Danny was crying and asking why they were taking the babies away. Patricia Wilson looked satisfied as she watched Katie's pain. Outside the courthouse, Mr. Rodriguez tried to comfort them. This isn't over, Katie. 60 days gives us time to build a stronger case. We can show the judge that you're working to improve your situation. But Katie was not listening. She sat in Jake's truck staring at the empty car seats where her babies should have been. They don't know those people. Lily gets scared when strangers hold her. Rose won't sleep without her elephant. That night, Jake's apartment felt empty and sad. Danny kept asking when the babies were coming home. Jake did not know what to tell him. Katie sat in the bedroom holding the twins' stuffed animals. Everything smelled like her babies. She could not eat or sleep. She just wanted her children back. The next few days were terrible. Katie could barely get out of bed. Jake had to go to work, but he worried about leaving her alone. She was so sad and scared that he was afraid she might hurt herself. On Wednesday, they went to the social services office for Katie's first supervised visit. The twins were staying with a foster family named the Johnsons. They seemed like nice people, but Lily and Rose looked confused and scared. "Mama!" Both girls cried when they saw Katie. They ran to her and held on tight. Katie hugged them and cried. "I missed you so much. Are you okay? Are they feeding you enough?" The social worker, Linda Carter, watched everything carefully. She wrote notes about how the children reacted to their mother and how Katie interacted with them. After only 1 hour, the visit was over. Katie had to give her babies back to the strangers. The twins cried and reached for her as she walked away. That night, Jake found Katie sitting on the floor of the bedroom holding one of Rose's little dresses. "I can't do this, Jake. I can't live without my children. They need me, and I need them." Jake sat down next to her. "I know, but we have to be strong. For them, we have 60 days to prove to the judge that our family belongs together. What if it's not enough time? What if the judge decides the Wilsons are better for them because they have more money?" Jake took Katie's hands in his. "Then we'll fight, harder. We'll appeal the decision. We won't give up." Katie looked into Jake's eyes. She saw love there, not just for her children, but for her too. "Why are you doing this? They're not even your children. You could have a normal life if you just walked away from all this trouble." Jake's heart was full of words he wanted to say, but he was scared. Instead, he just said, "Because you and the girls are family to Danny and me now. Families stick together." 3 weeks into the separation, Patricia Wilson's lawyer called Mr. Rodriguez with an offer. "My clients are willing to give Mr. Martinez $50,000 if he will convince Katie Wilson to give up her parental rights voluntarily. They think the young woman listens to him." When Mr. Rodriguez told Jake about the offer, Jake was so angry he could barely speak. "They think they can buy me? They think I would sell Katie's children for money?" "I told them you would refuse," Mr. Rodriguez said. "But Jake, $50,000 is a lot of money. It could change your life." Jake stood up and paced around the small office. "Those people don't love those children. They just want to own them. They want to erase Katie from their lives like she never existed. I agree with you, but the offer shows they're worried about losing the case. That's good news for us." Jake went home and told Katie about the offer. Her face went pale. "They really think you would take money to help them steal my babies?" "Never," Jake said firmly. "Those children belong with their mother. No amount of money could change that." Katie felt her heart fill with love for this man who had sacrificed so much to help her family. She realized that she loved Jake not just because he had saved them, but because of who he was as a person. "Jake, I need to tell you something," she said quietly. But before she could say more, Jake's phone rang. It was Mr. Rodriguez, and he sounded excited. "Jake, you need to bring Katie to my office first thing tomorrow morning. I found something in the court files that changes everything." Katie and Jake rushed to Mr. Rodriguez's office early the next morning. The lawyer looked like he had not slept all night, but his eyes were bright with excitement. Papers were spread all over his desk. "Sit down, both of you," he said. "What I'm about to tell you will change everything." Katie gripped Jake's hand. "What did you find?" Mr. Rodriguez picked up a medical file. "I was going through all the hospital records from when the twins were born. I wanted to make sure we had everything we needed for the final hearing." He paused and looked at them both. "I found something that doesn't make sense." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "The blood type records for the twins don't match their supposed father, Marcus Wilson." Katie looked confused. "I don't understand. What does that mean?" Mr. Rodriguez pulled out another paper. "Marcus Wilson had type A blood. You have type O blood, Katie. But both Lily and Rose have type B blood. That's genetically impossible if Marcus was their father." Jake felt his heart stop. "Are you saying Marcus wasn't the father?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. But here's the really amazing part. Mr. Rodriguez looked directly at Jake. I checked the records from when you gave blood at the hospital 15 years ago after your drunk driving arrest. Jake, you have type B blood. The room went completely silent. Katie stared at Jake, then at Mr. Rodriguez, trying to understand what this meant. But that's impossible, Katie whispered. I only met Jake 3 months ago in the park. Mr. Rodriguez shook his head. I did some more research. Jake, do you remember volunteering at the community center on Oak Street about 3 years ago? Jake thought for a moment. Yes, I helped with their spring festival. I was building booths for the vendors. Katie, where were you working 3 years ago? Katie's face went pale. I had a part-time job at the community center. I helped with events and cleaned the building after school. She looked at Jake with wide eyes. The spring festival. There was a volunteer who helped me carry some heavy boxes to my car after the event. Jake's memory came flooding back. You had long brown hair and wore a yellow dress. You thanked me and said you hoped to see me again. But when I came back, the next week to ask you out, they said you had quit your job. I had to quit because my aunt made me move in with her boyfriend and he didn't like me working, Katie said, tears starting to form in her eyes. I looked for you, but I didn't even know your name. Mr. Rodriguez smiled. According to my research, that was exactly 9 months before the twins were born. Katie put her hands over her mouth. Oh my God, Jake, you're their father? Jake felt dizzy. All this time he had been fighting to help Katie keep her children, not knowing they were actually his own daughters. How is this possible? Jake asked. How did Katie end up married to Marcus if I'm the father? Katie was crying now, but they were tears of joy mixed with sadness. After I moved away, I found out I was pregnant. I was scared and alone. I met Marcus at a college party a few weeks later. When I told him I was pregnant, he offered to marry me and raise the babies as his own. I thought I was doing the right thing for my children. Marcus never questioned if he was the father? Mr. Rodriguez asked. I told him the truth about being with someone else, but the timing made it seem like he could be the father too. He said it didn't matter and that he wanted to take care of us. Katie wiped her eyes. I thought I was giving my babies a good father and a stable home. Jake stood up and walked to the window. His mind was spinning. So Lily and Rose are my daughters? Yes, Mr. Rodriguez said. And this changes everything legally. As their biological father, you have parental rights. The Wilson family has no legal claim to the children at all. Katie looked at Jake with worry. Jake, I know this is a shock. If you don't want this responsibility, I understand. You didn't know you had children when you helped us. Jake turned around and looked at Katie. His heart was full of love for this brave woman and for the 2 little girls he now knew were his daughters. Katie, I've loved those girls from the moment I met them in the park. Now I know why. They're mine. He sat back down and took her hands. And I love you too. I've been falling in love with you since that first night, but I was too scared to say anything. Katie started crying again. I love you too, Jake. I was so afraid to tell you because I thought you might feel trapped or obligated to help us. Mr. Rodriguez cleared his throat. This is very touching, but we need to get to court. Immediately. Judge Martinez needs to know about this discovery right away. 2 hours later, they were back in the courtroom. Patricia Wilson looked annoyed at being called back to court so quickly. Her lawyers whispered together, looking confused. Judge Martinez reviewed the DNA test results that Mr. Rodriguez had rushed through the lab. She looked amazed as she read the papers. Mr. Martinez, you are indeed the biological father of these children? Yes, Your Honor. I had no idea until this morning. Patricia Wilson stood up, her face red with anger. This is ridiculous. My son raised those children as his own. He gave them his name. Judge Martinez looked at her sternly. Mrs. Wilson, your son was not the biological father of these children. He has no legal connection to them. You have no legal right to seek custody. Patricia's lawyer tried to argue. Your Honor, my clients have been caring for these children's emotional and financial needs since birth. Actually, Mr. Rodriguez said, standing up, we have evidence that your clients threw the children and their mother out of their home with no support when they needed help the most. Judge Martinez made her decision quickly. Given this new evidence, I am immediately returning custody of Lily and Rose Wilson to their parents, Katie Wilson and Jake Martinez. The temporary foster care arrangement is terminated effective immediately. Katie began crying with relief. Jake put his arm around her and felt tears in his own eyes. Furthermore, the judge continued, I am ordering the Wilson family to pay damages for the emotional distress caused by their false custody claim and harassment of this family. Within an hour, Katie was holding her babies again. Lily and Rose cried with happiness when they saw their mother. They had missed her so much during the weeks apart. Danny was thrilled to learn that the babies were actually his half-sisters. I knew we were meant to be a family, he said, hugging both twins at the same time. 6 months later, Jake and Katie had a small wedding in the park where they first met. Danny proudly walked Katie down the aisle while Lily and Rose threw flower, petals everywhere except where they were supposed to go. Jake used the money from the settlement with the Wilson family to start his own construction business. Katie enrolled in nursing school, and Jake's mother moved to town to help take care of the children while Katie studied. They bought a bigger house with a yard where the children could play. Jake built a swing set in the backyard, and every evening, after work, he would push his daughters on the swings while Danny played catch nearby. One year after that rainy night in the park, Jake and Katie sat on their front porch watching their children play in the yard. Lily and Rose were chasing butterflies while Danny taught them the names of different flowers. Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if it hadn't rained that night? Katie asked, leaning against Jake's shoulder. Jake smiled and kissed the top of her head. I think we would have found each other eventually. Some things are just meant to be. Katie looked at her husband and children, feeling grateful for the miracle that had brought them all together. What had seemed like the worst night of her life had actually been the beginning of the happiness she had always dreamed of. Jake had thought he was rescuing a young mother and her babies from a storm. He never could have imagined that he was actually being reunited with his own daughters and finding the love of his life. Sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with the darkest moments, and sometimes what looks like an ending is actually just the beginning.